2. First on the agenda is a workshop meeting with the Fire Station Building Committee and representatives of our other town committees. Kent, Mark?
Those of you who don't know me, I'm Mark Pearl, I'm chairman of the building committee, and we appreciate the time that you provided with us tonight. We just wanted to, we've been meeting with the selectmen pretty frequently to get you, make requests and talk about specific aspects of the project, but tonight is more of an opportunity to, is that better? Tonight's more of an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into the details, and we have our whole committee here tonight except for Richard St. Hilaire, and we also have representatives from S&P Architect. Anthony is going to speak, but we also have Jason Lacombe here, and we have Jeff Parks from Bowen Corporation. So the idea tonight is to give you more of an overview of what we've been working on since the vote to acquire the land in March, and talk a little bit about what has to happen over the next month. The one thing we're not going to be prepared to do tonight is to talk about the budget. We're still working on that, and we hope to come back to you soon with that piece of information. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Kent.
So tonight we're going to, this is a much better visual for the camera. So we've done this on a projector before. It's really washed out for the TV, for the viewers. So this is a little bit crisper. I know it's small for the people in the room, but I think on the TV it will be much better. So we're just going to go through quickly the land purchase and the land swap. We'll then kind of progress to the building itself. This was really a project to see in the initial stages if a building of the size we need would fit on that lot. So Anthony will talk to that. We'll also talk about the initial proposals that we have, the size, the reductions, the changes that we've already gone through, several different reductions in the building. Jeff will talk about construction management and the process that Kingston's picked to do the building. Chuck will give a financial update as to the bonding and the different options for financing a new station that we would have. And then we'll just kind of wrap up with what we still have to do to produce a warrant article for March. So you can see this is kind of the topography where Rock Rimmon and Main Street. So you can see in that corner the existing station. So we went to S&P and said, based on a program, and that's basically a block diagram that develops a square footage of what a station would need to be. So you can see an aerial of that same lots of land, the existing stations right there. So you can see, based on a roughly 16,500 square foot building, after we got done laying out what we think we needed, that's not going to fit. Right, that's a 0.75 acre lot that the existing station sits on. So last March, it was voted yes for a land purchase and building swap. Just so everybody can understand that, we'll go through that. So that's the 4 Rock Rimmon Road land purchase. So that gives us all the area in green. So really the station would need just that front piece of that land. We add that to the existing lot that we have, and you can see we still don't get there. So we also worked with the neighbor at 146 Main Street. You can see that's her existing lot. And what would happen, that's the land swap section. So we would need that little triangular piece to make that a nice rectangular parcel. So 146 Main Street gets combined with that back section. So that would be the new 146 Main Street piece of land. We then get a nice rectangular shaped piece That goes from 0.75 acres to 1.85 acres, and it becomes a buildable lot. So in the beginning, that really represents about a 16,500 square feet for that building. So it would fit on the existing land swap and land purchase land. So I want, Anthony can go through kind of what's called the fit study or the program, building program, what we had to do and how we got to kind of the dimensioning and the floor plans that we have today.
Thank you, Kent. So as Kent was explaining, SMP was asked to look at the parcel and determine, based on the conceptual program, if the building would fit. This was a first pass conceptual. It was just more of a quick layout to see, based on the apparatus size and all of the different rooms, if it would fit. With the parking, with turning radiuses of the truck, and public parking, as well as maintaining the existing fire station, because they are going to remain operational through the construction of any new building. We saw it fit, but at 16,230, it was still a bit on the large side, so the committee went back and looked through the building program that they gave us and thought long and hard about each room, if they needed it, how big it actually had to be. And so they came back to us with a revised building program, which this graphic represents. Each room is to scale, various sizes that are required, you know, an office, a bathroom, a conference room, and so on. So that size got reduced significantly, and then now we had the pieces and parts, we were able to reconfigure it to a smaller footprint. Many times we went around to ask, do you really need to have you know, a space for your emergency management director? Do you need to have an EOC office, and what size? So after several rounds of reduction, we got to a size building that was option F. You can see how many times we did different iterations. This one here is 14,238. It has 4 apparatus bays. I don't know if this has a laser. It does, but it doesn't work. 1, 2, 3, 4 apparatus bays. Drive through or back in. This one worked, but there was a little bit of inefficiencies with the amount of corridors that we had. So we went back and reconfigured it a bit, tightened the building up. We also flipped the building so that the administration portion is facing Main Street, and the green is the foreground, and the apparatus is in the background.
That was a big,
Yep.
that was a big concern for the committee, that if we flip this the other way, this is a pretty big wall on the side, facing the corner, facing the corner of Rock Rimmon and Main. It just was physically too big, we thought, for that corner. So we asked SMP to basically flip the building and then rearrange some things.
While we're looking at option H, I think one of the other things that came out of the conversation was to look at the building and what's the most costly areas to construct and which were the least costly areas to construct. The apparatus bay is a big volume. That usually is rather inexpensive to build a big garage. The administration wing, with all of the dorm rooms and the offices, that tends to be a higher cost. So we went through the program and we pulled out areas, the decon room, the gear room, storage spaces. We took them out of the administration wing and we put them under the garage, basically. So that reduced the overall construction costs, hopefully. It was an effort to try to at least align a budget. So all of those rooms are now on that far left bay. So we still have 4 bays for the apparatus, and then 1 long region on that far left side with all of those extra uses. This is a colored arrangement with your apparatus. The trucks may not be in that actual location. The chief may choose to locate them in a different place, but the blue represents the offices, the open offices, the meeting rooms, and public restrooms. The green is for staff, training, dispatch, EOC. All the orange region is function specifically for the fire department and the apparatus, and then the gray is kind of common area corridors, things of that nature. This now with a basement, which is on the far right-hand side. The gross square foot of this is 13,903. Some tweaks still need to occur here, but we've dropped significantly from where we were with that fitting study that was 16.2, 16.3. So I think the plan has become tight, very efficient, still meets the needs, fulfills all the program requirements that's been outlined, and should serve the community well. We then looked at the mass, the model of the building. We looked at some of the materials that we would likely see in a building of this nature. We're trying to keep the scale of this building down, and so the apparatus side we're currently showing as a flat roof, so we don't have a big giant gable. And then the administration wing, we've played with the gable ends and the dormers to kind of, again, bring the mass of the building down so it doesn't have this big impression. We added some brick material on the front of the apparatus bay to make it really look like a municipal building, something that will stand. We're working towards trying to get an ICF, an insulated concrete form wall system in the administration wing. That is a very, very efficient, energy efficient, airtight wall system that the department would like to use. We've successfully used this on past projects. Most recently, we completed Warner Fire Department, did it all ICF, both the apparatus and the administration wing, in a very nice, tight building. A few more images. This is how the view from Main Street, looking through the side entry. The back of the lot, looking back towards the front green, and Rock Rimmon would be to your left. This little addition on the side is all of that, those secondary use spaces, the decon room, the gear room, storage spaces along the side. This would also be the side entry where the firefighters would come when there's an event. They'd come in that back door, they'd gear up, they'd get into the trucks, and they'd go to the event. This is from Rock Rimmon, looking back at the building. It's an aerial view. Whenever we do buildings today, we try to take advantage of the solar orientation, and if we did do a flat roof, you've got very nice exposure to the south, and as a future opportunity, we could easily add solar arrays onto that roof. Quick video. We're on Main Street now. To the left is the neighbor's land and the combined space. The effort to get the large parcel and to do the land swap, very smart, very wise move. Keeps the the municipal building right on the green, right in the main part of town. It's a nice flat site. We've got a few things that we still need to work through, which is the power line right-of-way, which the committee is working on redirecting. There's the existing water, well, sewer, which we still need to work through, but in general, it's a relatively easy flat site with nice exposure, so it should work out well for you. Guess we're going to talk about construction management and the process that the committee has chosen to fulfill this project. So Jeff from Bowen Construction is going to speak about the process of construction management and how this will be different than some projects. Go ahead.
Hi. I guess backing up a little bit, probably from mid to late November into December, I'm going to be taking the plans that are developed here and probably another half a dozen sheets of sections and maybe elevations, 4, and developing a budget to go before the town. That's kind of the initial part of the construction manager at this point. If it develops further through the town in vote in March, we'll actually go out and actually bid the project. Right now, I'm going to use square foot numbers. I can actually take off flooring, siding, doors, that type of thing that's physical on there. I'm going to reach out to some larger contractors, mechanical, HVAC, the sprinkler, electrical, that type of thing. Have them help me a little bit on the budget. I have we've got about 4 projects out to bid this year. I do have data in from that, past projects we've had. The numbers are kind of up and down constantly. So we're going to square foot some of this building, some of the building we're going to get actual numbers for. But we won't actually go out to bid until after the project is approved in the March town meeting. We'll try to get at least 3 to 5 bids in each division or each phase of work. Right now, everybody's busy. It's hard to get that 3 to 5, but we'll try our best at this point. We'll advertise in local newspapers, construction summary, Dodge reports, that type of thing, to try to reach out to people. We also like to have a contractor's night or 2 if we could, invite local contractors in, have the plans on the table, help develop that relationship in the community. My company also built a library in town, so we have a little bit of knowledge of the local community and subcontractors around. Does anybody have any questions about the process that went through all the construction management, what the construction manager actually does throughout the project?
Where are we at now?
All right, so all I have right now is I've taken like a 3-page spreadsheet, took the plans in here and just kind of labeled probably this right from site work all the way through electrical, just kind of picked out items, apparatus, big doors, flooring, all the things I can see on the plan now, developed it. It's all zeroed out at this point. I haven't actually done any takeoffs. Again, I can maybe do some square footage things now, but until I have maybe 3 or 4 more pages from the architects, we'll be working on that through November. I'll get something at the end of the month, yeah. So at the end of November into December, I'll actually start putting numbers on that. We'll have meetings with the committee, update them on budget numbers, go back and forth until what is the actual date we need to get a number at? End of December? Yeah. So I imagine we'll have 2 or 3 meetings either on site with the committee or by phone or by Skype, whatever the case is, back and forth with those numbers until we actually have a number to present.
The graphic that's on the screen right here just kind of represents all the different individuals and organizations that would be involved in your project. Obviously, you're the owner. All the green items are things that the committee will take care of. Phone vendor, security system surveying. In the middle of the triangle, that's where we all come together as the hub. SMP and Bowen, the construction manager, are working for you on your behalf. We're advocates for the town. We are reimbursed and to act as your supporters. On the architect side, we carry landscape, civil, structural engineer, mechanical, electrical engineers. Those are all under us, so we'll be meeting with everybody, but we manage them. There'll be times when those engineers will come and work with the committee or review the building, but they're all usually in the background. On the construction management side, they have all the subcontractors, all the trades that will be building the building. So they have the mechanical subcontractor, the plumbers, the electricians, and so when the building actually goes into construction, they all are contracted under the construction manager. But again, I think it's important that all 3 parties are all working together on the same side of the table. It's not like It's not like another delivery method. This is considered a delivery method for construction. It's not where there is an adversarial relationship. Usually we all work together as a team, we know the goal, we know the budget, we work towards that budget to get you a building that fulfills your goals and needs at the money that was approved. And that's the delivery method that the committee chose to go forward with.
I was just wondering, now that you've honed it down to roughly 14,000 square feet, what is the functional use of that for the fire department? What's the projection that they'll get out of that? 50 years, 75 years?
So we did go into this at a 50-year building, and it really wasn't, I mean, we were kind of basing it off of the existing structure. One section was 1946, the other was 1968. So kind of based it off of that. This will probably be, a long-term solution for us.
No, but I think that's what I'm asking. You'll definitely get 50 years.
So absolutely, and if you look at, there's room for growth here. Yes, we've made some reductions. It was unanimous. The committee agreed. There were some reductions to be done. So one of the things initially were we were going to consolidate the stations, right? We have the South Station and the Central Station. Because this has moved kind of away from the center of Kingston, which if you do the mileage, it's really where the PD is. It's where the initial building was going to go, down by the lake, down that way. That went over well. So as we move north, we really do need to keep South Station. Maybe it's only one engine down there, but it would be unmanned, but it would need to be a fire station for us. So this was initially a 10-bay station, but we're going to keep South, so we dropped that. So there was some significant reductions on the bays. The other thing we did on the bays, those were 20 by 40 bays. We brought everything down to Rich's building, down the highway garage, put everything in there. 20-foot bays are big. He has 18 by 40, so we also dropped the square footage of the bays. That's plenty big enough with 14-foot doors with the 40 feet. Even growth for down the road, there could be an aerial, a quint in that. The first bay right now is a 20, so there's one 20-foot wide bay. It could be any one of those, but we'll keep one at 20 feet wide, and then the rest of them are 18 feet by 40. The other thing, as Anthony mentioned, we kind of kept the bay on the left there, but that's now kind of more the administrative piece of it, working the gear room, some showers, some work area over there, so a much less expensive, as Anthony said, piece or design of the building versus having it more in the admin section. So that was a pretty good savings there. The benefit also is that's not a kind of floor to ceiling, so we'll have almost a mezzanine that we can train on the left-hand side there, so we can do some training up on the top there. So that's one of the things we tried to work into this building design as well. The other was a significant reduction was the EOC and training room, was we combined those. So we had a separate EOC, we had a separate training room, we kind of combined them. We took a page from Pelham. If anybody gets the chance to go into the Pelham Fire Station, beautiful station. But they basically have a wall that opens, and all their emergency management center is behind this folding doors. So you don't need a whole separate room. We can just use the training room. Other than that, I think the big change from the initial was a cellar. We really thought we could utilize all the mechanicals downstairs. Really what it will do for us is reduce the main floor. So instead of it being close to 14,000, it's dropped to 12,700. So it reduces the envelope that you'll see, by 1,144 square feet will go underneath. and it just kind of reduces that whole envelope as far as the building.
Can you kind of take us through what the spaces are? It's hard to,
Sure. So we have more on the blue is more the office section, so the chief, the admin, you'll come through on the right, there's a couple small conference rooms, a day room. So the assumption moving forward 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're probably gonna have more full-time people. I mean, we're staring at an issue right now with per diem, so it's a change from a call department to a per diem. That means people will be here. We have a person sleeping in the station tonight, right? So as you shift to per diem, you're gonna need bunk rooms here, a kitchen facility for them to be able to cook and eat dinner at. So that's the green area. They're also staying here 24 hours a day. So we've moved from a call department to the full-timers now staying here for 24-hour period. That then, some exercise area for them. Supply, always storage area and supply area is a big concern. You never have enough storage, so you can see there's ample storage both downstairs and in this area here. Bathrooms, so there's 2 bathrooms with showers in them, pretty straightforward. Training room and emergency management room up here. And then the main, kind of the general offices come back around. So we have been working with Jeff and his team as well as Anthony, and we've added a second hallway. One of the things that we wanted to have the firefighters come out between the trucks, not in front of them, so we added a second hallway for that. On the other side, in the orange, you can see the apparatus bays. So there's room for pretty much 10 pieces. There is plenty of room to put them side by side, meaning you could have a pickup truck with an air trailer beside it or in back of it as it's shown here. On the left wall, there's a gear room. So if you go into the station today, all the gear is all over the walls in the station. So we'll have one central, any of the new stations, there's a centrally located gear room with racks in there. Off of that, there's a decon room. So if you come in from a structure fire and you have foam all over you, or oils or anything from a motor vehicle accident, a chemical issue, the decon room is there. We can take the gear off, you can wash it. You can also jump in to a shower so you don't contaminate the admin piece of the building as well. Some equipment storage, EMS. So the EMS storage closet is just that. All the bandages, all the masks, anything for the ambulance supply is there. And then in the top left is just a general work area for the maintenance of the apparatus. Downstairs, mechanical, sprinkler, electrical room will be downstairs, as well as a good storage area.
So 2 things I just wanted to add. In the days that we're in now, there's a lot of contaminants that the firefighters are exposed to when there's an event. And so we try to separate all the apparatus from the administration wing. So we've got vestibules in between the apparatus so that the contaminants can be separated. And people refer to it as the hot zone in the cool zone, and it's just trying to keep the area where people are living and working clean and free of those chemicals. I think to your point about future growth, the bay size is such that you won't be running into the issues that most communities are having with the trucks need to be built custom because you don't have enough height or width. You should be fine for a while with these base sizes, but down the road, if you have bigger, larger equipment, there will be provisions for possibly making an addition on that far left side, and then utilizing like that equipment storage room and making that a corridor through to a little addition for a future bay if you needed it.
So I do, Anthony pointed it out, but this is a great rendering that kind of shows, and if you have the land and you're in the area that you can do it, if you go north and you see the Brentwood building, it has a really big peak if you look at the bays. So that's one way to do the building, right? And if you look at Rich's Highway garage, when you look at the bays, it has the peak. We didn't want to go that way. That would probably be pushing 43, 44 feet tall on the corner of Rock Rimmon. So we went with a flat roof building. We think it'll fit. The peak there, Anthony, is 20, 24, 23. So 23 feet to the roof line. It's not so bad versus some of the other constructions. To get the span, you'd be almost 44, 45 feet tall, which is a little obtrusive on that site. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm going the wrong way, sorry. So Chuck is going to cover some financial updates on the project and the recommendation to the town.
We have been working, we have a finance subcommittee that we've been meeting with, and we've also met with the trustees of the trust fund to get some ideas from them on what we have available for funds. And we've also met once with the selectmen to get some ideas on how we want to do the project. And as you can see from the list of ideas that we've come up with, the first one there is one that we could conceivably take all the money from the dump fund and just pay cash for it and be done with it. That's probably not the most favorite one. The other part of it is we could take a portion of it and put it against the cost of it and then bond less, but use some amount of money, whatever amount we could come up with. Or bond the whole thing, which at this point, which is in the next slide, but right now the bond rates are very, very favorable. Like June's bonds were like 2%. We don't know what will be next year for July when we do it, but chances are it will be hopefully that 2 to 3%. And then one of the ones that we have been talking up the most is to do the bond totally, whatever the amount is, but we can also use some interest from the dump fund to be able to offset a part of the costs, on the bond. Now, we don't have a particular amount of money of interest. However, the interest from the dump fund can be used through the selectmen with a hearing. We don't need a warrant article, don't necessarily need a set figure for it. But we could take some of that interest money when we make the bond payment, pay less on the bond, which ultimately will allow us to have less impact on the taxes. So that's kind of one that we've really been looking at. So those are the ideas that we have so far. And going from that, it does have to be bonded. We do have a bond council, which we had to get now. It went out to bid. We got 3 or 4 bids, and any money for the bond council is not paid until after we get the station. So there's no money up front. They're there to help us write or approve the warrant article, especially if we add anything special into it. They will help us with it to make sure that it gets done right. They will keep us on our toes with the different dates that we need. We do need a December, probably early December for the hearing. And there's a whole outline with bonding, 2 or 3 RSAs we've been looking at to make sure we follow, because if you miss one, you know, we're up the creek. So we'll be keeping everybody posted on that. We have going to use the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. They seem to be very receptive for that and do a lot of work. Unfortunately, they've never heard of Kingston, because Kingston's never bonded anything. So I think it's a good thing, but they didn't have much information on Kingston. We are in the process of, we've got a few examples of warrant articles from the DRA and one from, on Plastow's thing, on the verbiage, on the wording of it, you know, to make sure that we get it right. December hearing, and the other big thing is it's a 3/5 vote for the bonding. So we've got to go out and push for the vote. Other than that, I think that's pretty well covers it. Thank you.
Whoa, that's small. So really, I would open it up. This is more, we just wanted to leave that up there. And it's some facts about the building, some of the things we're looking at with SMP and Bowen and Jeff's team. It might come up, you know, we had talked about radiant flooring, radiant heat. That may be a option that's cost prohibitive, right? So that's one of the things Jeff and his team, everybody, yeah, it's radiant heat's great, until we look at it and go, whoa, that's an $80,000 savings or adder if we wanted it. But some of the things in there, so we're looking at the floors. We talked to Rich, concrete floors, you know, just kind of shined up a little bit. You know, an epoxy coating for that bay area will probably run us $50,000, $60,000. So we're gonna hold off on that. We're gonna do that. We'll just do concrete flooring. That'll save us. One of the things we may not be able to get, but there were 2 stations. So we visited as a team, visited 6 stations. One of the things that kept coming up with this new electronic climate control systems that in the middle of February, their air conditioning's on, in the middle of the summer, their heat's on, right? So it's one of these, go kind of as low tech as we can. I don't know, you know, what that means, Rich, but much more walk over and turn the heat on and off and be able to turn your air conditioner on and off versus having a complete 100% climate control. Pelham was the one that he just said, this is crazy. You know, the air conditioning turning on in the middle of January. The other thing was have windows that open. There are a number of buildings that you can't open the windows. I mean, at work, we can't open our windows. The air conditioner is on too much. We can open the windows and enjoy the air. Really, how many times do you need the air conditioning during the summertime, right? Close the windows, put the AC on. So if we have opening windows, I think that's going to save us a lot. I will comment on the construction. I've done a little bit of research on the ICF. It is a concrete wall with insulation. It is great to keep the heat from the sun in the summer out, right? So your air conditioning stays in, and then on the other side, in the wintertime, keeps the cold out, right? So your heating bills are lower. Good construction method, except can we handle the adder? It's definitely going to be more than a steel building or a wood frame construction. So that is one thing that we really want. It's efficient. It's very energy efficient, very green construction. So we're certainly working towards that. LED lighting, you can't even buy regular incandescent bulbs anymore. Everything will be LED and kind of timered on and off, or motion, you know, motion on and off. So that's kind of standard run-of-the-mill lighting, but that came up from people in the town, said got to be LED. The kitchen, I will say it's not going to be a regular home kitchen. It has to be ADA compliant kitchen, so there's going to be some things different. Did we need that? Well, yeah, to meet the code, you're going to need to be compliant on some of this stuff on the station. So, and then one of the things we did, I know we twisted Jason's arm quite a bit on the cellar, but we thought it was a good idea to have the storage, reduce the overall first floor footprint, and then get the mechanicals downstairs. So I guess I would open it up to Anthony, to Jeff, to Mark, to myself, the chief. Yes?
Go to the microphone, please.
One of the things that people were concerned about before was contaminating the soil. And you've talked about decontaminating people, keeping contaminated things away from decontaminated things. And I thought perhaps you might want to explain how that's going to work as far as protecting the environment.
Yeah, so in this particular, so we, if you haven't noticed, a tank just went in at Central Station a week ago. So we actually the town had to install, even on the old building, for containment. So now the floor drains are all tied to a tank, a storage tank, which we will monitor when it's full. It has to get pumped out. That same tank can be used in the new building. Not a huge cost savings if it's sized correctly, but pretty much that's the way that will work. So anything coming off the trucks leaking out will go be captive in this storage tank. When it's full, it gets hauled away. That's it? Either we nailed it or you're asleep, I don't know.
I got a question for you. On the end of the building, those rooms, about how wide is that? To me, it looks like an addition on the existing building, on the bays.
Really, yeah, that's almost that last bay.
And how wide is that? Is that 20 feet?
18. Is it a full 18?
So is the cost significantly different of doing that add-on as opposed to have the building, it just look like an additional bay without doors on it? Is that substantial? Because to me, it looks like you got a brand new building, then you stuck an addition on the end.
Put a lean-to on it.
I didn't say that.
I mean, was the savings significant, or, I mean, I see that it is, it's a little lower.
Yeah.
Looks like that's added after the fact.
I said it looked like a shipping container, but. So again, I think everyone needs to understand this is not the building that's getting built. This is a initial elevation concept. Things will get changed. I agree with you, Mark. One of the things, the first thing we said was, ooh, we got to work on the back. So.
I mean, I assume that was done because of a cost savings.
It was. So we wanted to, if you go back, oh, wrong way. So if you, we were looking at the gear room and some of the apparatus work area in the middle, and we all said, why don't we push that to the last bay? So in essence, you could, I guess, you know, make this brick and make it a whole brick addition out here at the same height or a lesser height. But yeah, this is, looks like it's added on, so.
Well, to me, if you're talking about, you know, down the road, you got room to put on another bay if you had to. I guess to me, unless it's a significant cost savings, it would make more sense to incorporate that space in the regular, just by extending that out, and then if you had to put on addition, put bay doors in the front and back, and then put the addition for the equipment rooms off of that.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at that.
We don't disagree with that at all. We know where we're going, and at some point in time, we're gonna have to try to find some savings. And by changing the material, bringing the scale down, different roof, it was a little bit more efficient, but.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, are you talking about a huge difference, or is it, you know?
Hard to say. Yeah.
I mean, square footage wise, Yeah, you're saving a little bit on the height.
Right.
But you're not really saving on the,
In the material, plus it's much less expensive.
so on the material, well, on the material, I don't see the savings if you go with the concrete. You're still gonna have a concrete wall. The extent, it'd be 20 feet on the front and 20 feet on the back, you're still gonna have that side wall. It pretty much runs, that'll be on the inside, and then you're gonna be putting another wall on the outside of that,
I'm
right?
assuming this is an ICF though, correct? Yeah.
So we're only doing the ICF portion in the administration wing. The rest of the apparatus, that saddlebag addition, was going to be, we don't know yet, but we're gonna look at structural steel with insulated metal panel wall system, and then brick veneer on the front face. So the insulated paneled wall was a less costly solution to capture all that volume. And again, these are just things that we're talking with the committee about and getting feedback from you is
Yep.
perfect, so they all can change, but I don't disagree about what you're saying. Just keep that whole volume, flat roof, and not have the addition. This kind of thing, it's more traditional New England. Most of the farmhouses are grown with subsequent additions over the years.
Yeah, and
so-
that's fine down the road if you put on an addition, but I mean, you don't wanna build a new building that looks like you just put on an addition. To me, I don't, unless it's a huge savings.
And that's gonna be, you know, that's kinda on Jeff.
Saying it's not huge money, but it is money we're trying to scale that.
One thing that I wanted to add that I'm not sure was touched on is, we made a very conscious decision to keep this building one level, other than the small basement, which is primarily for the mechanicals, so that we avoid the expense of the elevator, so.
On a building that size and that, I know the different materials, there must be you must have some idea of a range from, I don't know, 200 to 300 a square foot?
I'm not gonna toss numbers out until we get to it. So I say something that's gonna set.
From our perspective, it's a very pragmatic solution. The committee has really thought long and hard about what their needs are, and it's not elaborate in any sort of way. Like I was saying, very pragmatic.
Quick question. The flat roof, is that pragmatic? I mean, who's gonna be shoveling that with the snow? I'm not a construction person, I claim no expertise, but it seems to me that you're gonna have to have very strong steel beams across the top of that building, that section of the building, in order to support the roof, but you're still gonna have to deal with snow removal.
Certainly, I know one of the things we talked about with Anthony was in the flat roof, there will be drains, there'll be some slope so that it does, the meltage will drain off the roof. I don't know, when there's a snow load, I'm not sure if you have a better explanation for that.
So you're right, there will be consideration given to carrying the snow. New Hampshire, we have a lot of flat roofs around. It was a cost decision as well as just the general scale volume of the building to go away from trusses. We are expecting this to be a steel building on that side of the building and have steel bar joists. The structural engineer has to develop it to meet all of the structural code requirements, and they take all the snow load conditions into effect. It'll have a sloping roof with insulation, so it will taper down to roof drains, and that will be exiting the building through leader lines. So it will all be engineered appropriately. There's a lot of flat roofs in New Hampshire, and some have failed through the years because of issues that they've had. But our expectations would be to have it set up such that it drains into the systems that it's meant for.
One of the other components of the flat roof and the structural steel, it does give us the span we need, so there are no supports. When you walk into those bays, you walk into some of the warehouse type, and there are big, steel support columns in the middle. This building it's going to be open, which will be a benefit to adjusting where the apparatus goes, some of the smaller things. So that was one of the key components of going that way. Anything else?
Just speaking to that, I know that is a big thing these days with flat roofs. Although I think new buildings now are engineered to handle a lot more. They're not designing the buildings they're designing it to hold enough of a load so you don't have to go up and shovel the roof.
Right.
And a lot of it, I think, was older buildings that weren't designed that way, that now it's a maintenance nightmare. They gotta go up and clear the roofs because it can't take the current snow loads. So I assume, would that be accurate, that it would be designed so that wouldn't be a maintenance requirement, that, anything over 2 feet of snow, you gotta go up and shovel the roof?
Correct. It will be engineered to withstand snow loads that are expected for this region. However, if there's 2.5 feet of snow up there and it's gonna rain in the weekend, and you call the structural engineer, he'd say, I'd recommend getting up there and taking some weight off of it. He probably would.
Okay. Kevin, you have a question?
I would just say it looks like the building committee took their job seriously and it put forward a great proposal. I thank you for your time and effort.
Thank you.
We'll be coming back probably fairly soon to request a date for the bond hearing. We're working on figuring out exactly what we need to do to meet those requirements.
Yours to
What's that? Yeah, that'd be great. Graham, did you need to see us for anything? Okay. Thanks for coming in and for the presentation. All right, 7 o'clock, we have the Heritage Commission. We still got a few things. We probably ought to do this. What do you think, in non-public, huh?
No, I don't think we can.
What's that?
It doesn't qualify. You look at the reasons, doesn't qualify.
What's that?
Setting the tax rate.
Okay, you want to take a look at it now then?
Sure.
Unfortunately, Cindy's not here, but she's given us a spreadsheet. On, utilizing existing fund balance with a retention recommended by the state. Let's see. Okay, so if our anticipated fund balance is $1,762,250,000, which equates to 8.12%. I assume that she's, and I wish she was here to discuss it with us, but in that she's taken into consideration, we've revised revenues. Which would, I know we received some unanticipated funds, so that would certainly go in there. Under expenditures on the budget, I assume she's forecasted that.
I'm assuming, I know I asked her about that unanticipated money, but she said that was already figured in, so I'm assuming she got everything she normally would.
So currently, we're at, municipal rate is $3.75 per thousand. If we have no offset, it will be, we'd have a fund balance of, we'd be retaining it at 8.12%, 1.76 million, roughly. And the municipal portion of the rate would go up $1.08. Next column shows that if we put, and that does show over here that we applied, I think it was 710 last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So we, at the 710, we retained 897,720, which equated to 437, but in reality, because of additional revenues, under expenditures on the budget, things of that nature, realistically, it's projecting at 1.7. So the next line is if we applied 430 of the fund balance, leaving a balance of 1,332,250, which would be a retention of the 6.14%. Then the 530 column, we got a 670 column, a 730 column, and an 800 column. Irregardless of where we are, what column we choose, we're going to be realizing an increase.
I don't know how anyone feels if there's going to be any unanticipated revenue from next year. I know the costs are going up as far as our cleanup or whatever, everything else. I would make a recommendation for using 730,000, pertaining basically what the state's asking us to. Unless you want to go a little more, that reflects only a 0.21% increase.
Yeah, it's 21 cents.
21 cents.
$0.21 per thousand. So anticipating that's going to affect your rate at $1.04.
I mean, even if you go to the other one where we spend a little more of our fund balance, it's going to change the rate 13 cents per thousand.
municipal side, yep.
I don't think we had too much choice, it's either 13 cents or
I'd say the 13 cents
21.
brings it in at 96 cents. It's the lowest.
I agree.
Less impact on the taxpayers. It's about $500 per house.
And I'll make a motion that we expend 800,000 from the fund balance to offset the tax rate for our residents, which will effectively be a 13 cent per thousand increase.
I'll second that.
On the municipal portion of it.
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion?
I just have one question on this.
Yep.
Does this take into account the Santa Claus funds, or whatever they called it, giving some of our money back to state? Does this take that money back into account?
I don't follow you, giving our money back to the state.
Last week or the week prior, we had received notification.
Yeah, she's included it already.
Okay,
That's
so
the
that's already-
unanticipated revenue.
Yeah. State aid or whatever, yeah.
Well, it probably would have been reimbursement for, you know, unusual state of emergency, storms and things like that. It's typically what you get as unanticipated revenue. As far as, you know, revenue, we do receive, you know, like the block grant and stuff, but that's not unanticipated.
Yeah, I think we got like $73,000 or something.
Yeah, the state last week gave local aid, and we set it to
Local aid, thank you.
not Santa Claus, but
When they're giving you your money back.
and we put it to offset the taxes.
Well, it goes into the fund balance.
Right.
And then what we're doing now is.
Yeah, so my question is, we voted on it last week to put that into the fund balance. I just want to make sure that's reflected in here with these numbers.
I believe it would be. Okay, any other discussion? So the motion is to apply 800,000 of our fund balance towards the tax rate. Thereby, it will increase the municipal portion of the rate from 375 to approximately 388, a 13-cent increase on the municipal side, which most likely will equate to an increase in the tax rate of 96 cents based on what we're forecasting for the county's increase.
County's
decrease, excuse me.
Thank you.
Of 1 cent. And the school increase of 83 cents. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. 7 p.m., we have the Heritage Commission in to talk to us about the Community Revitalization Relief Program. Deb, who is it? Deb, Glenn, everybody?
We wish you last time.
You did.
We did, of course we did.
we're here, we were here 2 weeks ago, I believe it was 2 weeks, and had given a bunch of handouts, information, samples of, this is on the 79E property tax exemption that we're talking about. We gave you the RSAs with our interpretation of it, a PowerPoint presentation of slides of, summaries. We also provided a draft application and a draft covenant I was gonna say covenant to compete, but covenant to protect the town. So we've given you this documentation. I think, you had some time to look at it. And we were asked to come back because our request was to see if the selectmen would put in this warrant article. We do have a sample of what the proposed warrant article would look like that I can pass around. And one of the questions that we were left with was, what if a resident comes in and they want to do a renovation on their home? Why would we just give a resident something if they're doing interior and exterior? So naturally, they have to prove that there is some public benefit. I don't see how fixing the interior of someone's house would be a public benefit. So if they have a whole project to do, and we spoke last year to some of the state people on this, then they could separate out the project and say presenting towards the town the public benefit to maybe fixing the front of their house. We are under no obligation whatsoever to provide a benefit to a resident to fix the interior of their house. Yes, maybe if it was a residence that was going to be a bed and bath, that might be something, again, that would be public benefit. Bed and breakfast. Yes, we don't want to get that. So that was pretty much the last lingering question. And again, there's a lot of things that they have to prove. They have to get the state to, I'm going to use the right terminology. The state would have to, an architect, let's see, where's the terminology? The Heritage Commission and the HDC all have to give letters of approval. They also have to get an archaeologist from the state to approve that it's a qualifying structure. And your protection will always be if they believe that they've proven public benefit, et cetera. The courts and everything leans towards the selectmen unless the person applying can say you acted in bad faith or you discriminated against them. So, which is kind of not the easiest thing to prove, that you would have acted in bad faith unless there was something outstandingly significant that proved that you were discriminating or bad faith. So we really believe that this is a commercial benefit. Again, we're going back to our 2 properties in the HD 1 area. We're mostly looking at the seminary, but we also have the country store area over here that we really believe will benefit on this. And I think Ellie might go a little bit more into the benefit again for the school.
There's a lot, it's a tool for us as a community to use to entice a developer to invest some serious dollars into property that's in disrepair at this point. And usually by property, I mean historical property or significant architectural value and aesthetic qualities to the town. It's not a tool to use, as Debbie said, for someone who wants to revitalize their house to come before the select and say, can you hold my taxes for a few years so that I can recoup my costs? No, that's not the intent. The intent is to encourage a developer to come in and revitalize a project like the seminary building, for example. I don't have any details that's available at this point. There is someone seriously interested in the property, but that's still, the school board hasn't even heard the details, so I don't know exactly where it stands. But my guess is that something like a 79E provision will sweeten the pot. As you may remember, we had the buildings had 2 evaluations done in the buildings, And we're looking at least $3.5 million just for the seminary building alone. And that's without taking a windowsill off and seeing what kind of wood's behind the rot, so to speak. So it would be a costly proposition no matter who would come in to take a look at that. But from my perspective, it's a tool that can be used in an effective way to help the town move forward. And you all participated in the Envision Kingston. You remember that, you know, we talked about a long-term vision of what we'd like the center of town to look like, and the ability to bring in commerce that was a non-polluting type of business that would utilize the state park and our trails and walking tours around the center of town, never mind the historical buildings available, because we're the 6th oldest city or town, if you will, in the state of New Hampshire. So we want the selectmen's endorsement because I think that has a positive input on the community. If they see that you our administrative leaders endorse this as a good thing for the town, then a lot of people will vote for it. We came close last year, although it was last minute, it wasn't well advertised, I don't think. We didn't do enough ahead of time, but we had run out of time. So we'd like to be able to promote it a little bit more efficiently and effectively this year, educate the public as to the intent of the article, and hopefully have your endorsement so that we can move forward as a community on this endeavor.
They came forward 2 weeks ago, and actually, Selectman Wilson wanted to put forward a motion. I inadvertently made a mistake and didn't take the motion because we wanted you the opportunity to hear of it. When we looked at this last year, the information was limited, and we were just reeling off the barn easement issue and litigation, and we were looking short-sightedly at residential properties. Now that you look at the seminary building or any other commercial property in Historic District 1, you can see the use of it. We retain complete control over it, but now it seems like there's a lot more information. I never looked at the commercial benefit of it last year. I didn't even see that, to be honest with you. So
the selectmen have the ultimate decision to make. Yeah. It's not the Heritage Commission and the Historic District would make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, but it is the decision of the Board of Selectmen whether to grant it. And in effect, what it does, and I'll use the seminary bill. Let's say we have a realistic assessment of $1 million, and that they're taxed on $1 million, as it is today. If today it's $1 million, as in the disrepair it is, what 79E would in fact do, you would grant them, let's say 5 years, with no increase in taxes. So
is that laid out in the RSA? How long it would be, or is that up to the discretion of the selectmen?
Up to the discretion of the selectmen.
So the selectmen could say, okay, if you put in, whatever, $2 million and refurbish that building, we'll forego your taxes for 2 years.
Tax increase.
That's correct.
It is the tax increase. You, the selectmen, would have to set a current value, and you could use the two revals that we had commissioned, because the town paid for half of both of them. One, I think, came in at 1.7 million, one came in at 780,000, but that was the entire property, including the Chase Field, the gym, everything. But let's say that we were to sell only the seminary building, for example, and you, the selectmen, would determine what that value in its current condition is. And for make it easy number, let's say today it's worth $1 million. But if someone comes in and develops it and puts $3, $4, $5 million, the value obviously would go up. But if you were to exercise your provisions of the 79E, they'd only get taxed on the $1 million for the limited time you would grant them. You could grant them 5 years, 10 years, depending whatever the circumstances were.
Okay, so the RSA doesn't dictate how many years you have to give them?
No.
That is
No,
completely,
it gives you a maximum.
completely at your discretion.
Yes, but they give you a maximum, and they do give you certain things that you can give additional years for if they're energy efficient. There's certain criteria that you can add more. But if you decide 1 year is all you want to do, then you can do that. But you can't exceed, and I want to say them, I can't remember, was it 13 years? If they had bunched everything, it was affordable housing, if it was
Right.
energy efficient, it was all of these different items, so,
So there is an upper limit,
yes.
but you have complete discretion to do anything, you know, up to that point.
And so they stay on the tax roll, collecting taxes. If you have a 10 cents a thousand increase on that initial million, that say it was valued at $1 million, that would go up based on the million. It's, then when it's, everything is done, and you're at $3-4 million, then you can, then you tax 4 million at the full rate. But it doesn't freeze the dollar value, just the assessed value. So the collection of taxes isn't 500 now, 500 next year, it's whatever the assessed rate is. That's the other thing. Does that make sense? Did I say that
Well,
clearly?
I thought what it does is freeze the assessed rate.
It does, it freezes the assessed rate, even though the actual value is increasing.
And I thought what it said was before, and I'm just trying to go by memory, I thought it was, you were locked in for like 5 years.
Only if you set the 5-year grant to them.
Whatever we said.
Yeah, they actually, it's not in your packet apparently, but they gave us a full packet including the RSA.
And again, it's, if the property is valued on the day before construction happens at $1 million, the assessed value is what you apply the rate for. It doesn't mean if they paid $1,000 in taxes that they only pay $1,000 for the next 5 years or whatever. It would be whatever the tax rate is. It's only the assessed value that stays the same.
The assessed value gets held
Yes.
for that benefit period, whatever time. And if during that time period, the tax rate of the town goes up on a per thousand basis,
Yeah.
then that's applied to it.
So that was,
I think this makes more sense because we're putting more money into that building every year, so it's a cost to the taxpayers. I think by following this, we're at least gonna get some revenue coming out of that building. And I know something is in the works at this time.
We've never had revenue from that property, ever. And so even if at outside chance it's a 10-year window, still, it's going to behoove the community to do so to get it developed, because even in the meantime, you're gonna get some revenue from it. You're gonna get ancillary jobs and services as a result of the development, never mind the permitting fees and so forth. I mean, they're looking at, you know, probably condominiums. But at some point, and again, I don't wanna be premature because I know the school board has not heard some of the propositions that this developer has put on the table. And I think the superintendent wants to make sure the board hears it. But we as a board would have to meet with you, the selectmen, because there's no promise that the school board could ever make in terms of 70/90. The developer might request it or demand it, I don't know. But it certainly is a possibility, in which case we bring the selectmen into the discussion.
Right now, it's a cost to the taxpayers.
Mhm.
And it would be revenue coming in regardless on what it was.
That's correct.
Just one more step, as I was in on these meetings, and one thing Glenn Greenwood did is he set up a kind of a what-if situation with a couple of the buildings in town and said, what if it sells for $500,000 and to put this in it, this would be the tax impact, and I don't know if that's in
Well,
the sheets,
we took that same concept, but took the specific buildings out of it and did a generic example, and it's in, if you still have the PowerPoint package, one of the slides is an example of a pre-redevelopment and post-redevelopment, and what the difference would be to the town.
I was gonna say, what I did is I took that and worked it from the negative aspect backwards and said, if I was a developer and did this, how could I beat the system? You can't beat the system. I mean, it's basically set up to benefit the town.
I think if you focus on those two buildings that everybody has in their mind, I completely agree. That's what this is gonna be great for. My concern is that there are gonna be residents with non-commercial interests who are gonna bog this board down because they wanna put a new Japanese water garden in their front yard and it's gonna be of great, you know, aesthetic value. Hang on, let me finish, because, and I'm gonna go back to the barn easement thing. That was a frivolous lawsuit that tied up town resources, that, not just the monetary part, People had to go and testify in court for that. You know, people don't get paid for that, or at least we don't get paid for that. You know, and then after we won that case, he re-sued us. And it just, I guess I don't wanna see this become another thing that this board has to deal with on a constant basis and put us in the bad guy position because someone has some idea that they think is gonna be a great asset to the town on their house, or they claim it's gonna become a bed and breakfast, and then they never have a single person stay there, but we just gave them a tax break because, and this is, my concern is the residential side of it. I can completely see from a commercial standpoint, this makes a ton of sense, but I just don't wanna bog this board down with that kind of crap.
But again, you go back to what's the public benefit, you know, that the town is receiving. If the selectmen decide there's no public benefit, I don't know how that happened with the barn, but it's so clear, and everyone we've spoken for, at the state level has said, bad faith and discrimination, and that's what's going to bring things forth. They're not looking at stuff unless there's a strong case of, you know, a bad faith and discrimination.
I think what Phil's saying is what we've already experienced.
Oh, yes.
And I do believe that, I mean, you could simply have somebody come into town and buy a property in the historic district that maybe doesn't appear to be historic and says, you know what, I want to change the whole front of my house and make it how it was 100 years ago. And I'd like the town to subsidize that by freezing my taxes. And they could certainly make the argument that it would enhance the character of the historic district, or if it was simply a property that is in disarray and disrepair, say to the town, hey, okay, I'll fix up my house, but I want you to subsidize me. And I think you'd be hard pressed telling them no. And even if you prevailed, Phil's point is, you get taken to, they'd have to say, they can easily sue you, because you have this provision in here, and it's said to be discretionary, but discretionary isn't really discretionary, because they make the argument that, as happened in that case, they acted in bad faith and discriminated.
But anyone can sue anybody for anything.
Well,
I don't care. I mean,
I had more stuff to the list.
Yeah.
That's why they have the covenants, to protect from misuse. So what you're saying, if someone came for this for bed and breakfast, and they didn't convert it, they have to come pay you back plus interest. I mean, there are some pretty stiff fines for not doing what you don't finish in time, you don't do what you had perceived you said that you were gonna do. You have a covenant to protect you from that. You also have, again, I'm just kind of surprised about the other cases, and you're right, everyone can sue, but but the other thing is that I want to ask you, why do you think that someone who comes into town and their house is in it's in the HD area, it's in terrible disrepair, and they're fixing the face, why wouldn't that be towards our goal of keeping Kingston's historic district? So I'm a little, that example doesn't make sense, because I would think we might want to encourage someone for just the front of their, you know, from the public eye to.
You just lost us.
But 20 feet down the road, there's a guy doing the same thing, and he's not getting anything out of it.
Lose it, because if you take a house that assessed at just 300,000 for an example, and they do all this work, and now it's 600,000, the town just gained 300,000 in tax dollars.
No, it didn't. It's asking you to hold off on that 300,000
for
a certain period of time.
You could say it for 2 years.
It's a year.
Yeah.
For a year.
Again, it's bringing, you know, Envision Kingston was trying to revitalize the downtown area. Having not very nice houses is not revitalizing, you know, to improve what we have in our historic district is the goal to help us revitalize this area. And I don't think you'll get a lot of them, because I think a lot of our houses are pretty nice looking, but I don't think that should be a detriment that you might have one or two people doing that. I think
and the intent of the RSA really is geared toward economic development and commercial activity. And one of the most nearby local examples that we mentioned, I think, at the last meeting, was the Sea Dog conversion of the old Loaf and Ladle building in Exeter to the Sea Dog restaurant. That was one of Exeter's most successful RSA 79E uses. And if you talk with the economic development director there and the select board over there, it was an incredibly successful project. And I'm not going to say that it was a trivial benefit offered to the developer, but it was enough to sweeten the pot, as Ellie was saying, to make the project viable, and it's turned out to be a great thing, and it's a real shot in the arm, economically speaking, for the community to have that building being used the way it is right now. So the point is that can it be used on just regular structures that might, in fact, one of the public benefits is improve a culturally or historically important structure. Okay, well, that could be perhaps a residential structure, but again, that's up to the board to make that decision. But the RSA really was developed to help village centers, downtown districts, revitalize from an economic development and a commercial point of view.
I attempted to set up a site walk for one of these buildings, very near future for the board. That might be in the process now, so the board will have a better understanding once they get up to that site and see how it should work.
My understanding is that builders who have significant money to invest in a project such as upgrading the seminary building wouldn't consider making that kind of investment if the town didn't have 79E on it.
I think
it's probably true. That's probably true. I don't know that, but that's probably true.
Also, I mean, it's a significant investment for the property owner. I mean, they have to go and get a qualified architectural design. They have to prove through history and things like that this is eligible. So this isn't something I think that someone just randomly will say, I'm going to the town for. There's a lot of prep work required on the part of the applicant to get to the position to present to you that there's a public benefit.
Right, that was the second thing I was going to speak about on how to qualify. The second standard is the building or structure must be a qualifying structure, and therefore they have to prove to you by documenting that building, let's say a home, now we're worrying about residences, they have to prove that that is a qualifying structure worthy of the kind of input to make it, let's say, look better. And therefore, I'm sure that was maybe an exaggerated example, but a waterfall and a garden in the front yard is not going to fit in for that qualifying structure upgrade.
I guess my main problem with that would be is there can be someone with a qualifying structure 100 feet outside the historic district who's doing work on theirs, and they're not eligible for that savings in a it's a residential thing that they're doing to improve it. Myself specifically, I'm 100 feet outside the historic district, I'm working on my house, but I'm not gonna be qualifying for this, and that's not why I'm saying no. What I'm saying is, I completely see the value from a commercial aspect, but I don't see, because you're in one part of town or another, you should be qualifying for something that other people don't.
And we had quite a discussion about that last year, and I think that was kind of fuzzy in our thinking. And I believe our agreement or our decision was to try it out in HD1 first. There's no reason why you can't make it applicable to other places in town. Is that not correct? I mean, there's HD2, and then there are other places that have certainly historic structures in the town. It's just that we thought we'd start here.
But again, going back to the intent of the RSA, it talks about the more of the compact village centers, downtowns, and that sort of thing. I mean, that is its focus.
Okay.
So you want to know if we'd be willing to put in the article?
Yes.
Is that what the question is?
Glenn had some input.
Can I just say one last thing?
Sure.
Just to, I don't remember if it was Kevin's or
Phil's comment about the responsibilities of the Board of Selectmen, but one of the things that we noticed with other communities is that they established a committee that would look at all applications first before the Board of Selectmen ever saw them, to see if they even qualified. Just as an effort of understanding the application that was being made and making sure that it complied with the standards that the town has.
Sort of an advisory committee to the
Exactly.
select.
You mean, in addition to the Historical and the Heritage Commission?
Yes, because it made sense that we would maybe involve the planner, whoever that was, the building inspector, whoever that was, and folks that have a knowledge base that could help the selectmen understand what the actual application was, so that it isn't just an additional burden put upon the Board of Selectmen, even though you folks are the ones that are tasked with saying yes or no, that it seemed it would be appropriate to give you guys guidance as to whoever it was that was coming before the town. And I wanted to just make that clear, that this isn't an attempt to overburden you guys either. The more eyes that look at each of these, probably the better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you ready for a motion?
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that the selectmen back this RSA 79E.
Submit it
Submit it as a warrant article.
as a selectmen's article.
Yes.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of the selectmen putting forth this article on the warrant as a selectmen's article signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Yep.
very
Much
much.
appreciated.
Thank you, gentlemen.
In keeping with our agenda, I'd like to open it up for if anybody has any public comment, would like to address the board. We offer everybody 3 minutes. Anybody interested in speaking? Can you come on up here to the microphone, please? Need your name and address for the record, please.
Gator Dorsey, 155 Main Street. I'm wondering about the water situation we're having here in town, and how is this gonna affect my property, my value of my property? I mean, I am drinking bottled water now.
You're what, 155 Main?
Yes, I am.
Did, recently, there was a informational session that the state came down and talked to people, or did you participate in that?
No, I didn't know anything about it. I got this registered letter the other day saying that my water was tested, it was done back in September, October, and all kinds of levels. I'm not a chemist, I don't understand what it's all about, but basically they said I'd be receiving fresh water, so I could have some drinking water and cooking water. So I guess my question is, how's that gonna affect me as far as my property value?
Well, I don't think that we could really speak to how it would have an effect on your property value.
Well, I couldn't sell my house without having proper water.
Where it stands right now is, this is a relatively new thing. It's been looked at for the last couple of years. A bunch of testing has taken place. They've changed the parameters on contamination levels. It's found in numerous products that are used by the general public. In addition to back in the day where it was used in firefighting foam. I think the DES is making the assumption that some properties in the vicinity of the fire department has that have been tested, and there has been exceedance, on the levels, and they're operating under the assumption that it's the fire department. There's been other places in town where this has come up, and in other communities that are not even near any fire departments. So it's a relatively new thing. The DES has asked us to provide drinking water to residents who have had tests, and they do exceed some standards that were recently lowered, and that's where it stands at this point. This is gonna be a nationwide issue.
Nationwide.
Nationwide.
I'm concerned about Main Street wise right now.
I'm just telling you, it's a nationwide issue, probably not unlike the MBTE issue that petroleum companies were sued for, and they were given a huge, the state sued, and they established large funds for cleanup and remediation from the companies that produce those chemicals. That's probably where this is gonna end up.
So, I don't know, should I say who's to blame?
We don't know who's to blame. The assumption is being made because of the proximity to the fire department, this testing was done. However, I'll tell you, throughout the state, testing has been done, and there's been exceedance levels, and they're in no proximity to fire departments. Okay, so that's why I say it's a relatively new compound that they has come up on their radar, and we're trying to get a handle on it. It can be introduced, and I'm not suggesting that is in your case, but it can be introduced through wastewater disposal systems, your septic system. It's in products that have Teflon in them, anything that's rain repellent, rug carpet cleaners, shampoos and conditioners, things like that. So we're really trying to get a handle on, with the state, where contaminants are coming from and how they're gonna be addressed.
What I would just say, if you weren't here on last Wednesday night when we had the forum with the state for any resident to ask a question, originally the state standard was 70 parts per trillion, and we went around and tested everything. So yours was below that standard, so it was no issue. The state arbitrarily, with no scientific basis, lowered the standard to 11 parts per trillion. From 70 parts to 11 parts per trillion. The strictest in the country, foreign countries, Europe and everything else, they're at 100 and 200 parts per trillion. But the state of Hampshire right now is at 11 parts per trillion. So they mandated us to provide water for you to cook and to drink. Showering is that's not an issue, but that's where we're at right now. Okay, the state arbitrarily lowered it to 11 parts per trillion, the strictest in the world.
To give you an indication on what that equates to, I asked the state, I said, 70 parts per trillion, that's what it originally was. What does that equate to? And they said it's like about 1 drop in 7 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Okay, so right now the state's filed lawsuits with the chemical manufacturers, and that's kind of where it stands. We're acting in good faith with the state, saying, okay, you know what, there are residents, we'll provide them in that area that has been identified with drinking water at this point. Where it's going to end up, we don't know. There's been sites that there's a bunch of different chemicals, okay? In one area, the chemicals seem to be consistent, and then in another area popped up completely different chemicals, but they exceed the thing. So it's like, okay, well, how come it's a different chemical? All the other ones are the same, but this one's different. And we
So the
think.
guy across the street could be totally different than what I got.
Correct.
Could be. Again, you know, when people, unfortunately, in rural areas that have wells and septic systems, chemicals that people utilize, household cleaning their carpets or whatever, and it gets disposed of, it goes down the drain. And that goes into a leach field, and then a leach field is designed to leach the water out of the field. And it's a potential source of contamination. So it's in so many different things, it's gonna be a major national issue.
And the state gave a website last week when they were here that is very informative. If you go on that, it can really give you a lot of information.
So I'll be receiving water now for whenever, for whatever.
Yeah, so we figure out the next step, or, you know,
Will
so
we
your
be
levels go
notified of
down,
that?
your levels may go down.
Will we be notified, or are you gonna be testing it periodically?
Yep.
To see if testing changes or something?
A lot of the wells we've tested have actually gone down in numbers, but what Kevin was saying is, the way the state did this, they didn't do any public comment on it. No legislators ever voted on this. They just passed this through some obscure committee that somehow makes this legal. Like he was saying, New York and California, the two craziest states in the nation, they don't even have standards this low. So this is gonna be challenged in court, these new standards, and I don't see it lasting because the science is so vague. I mean, we're not chemists either, and we're pulling in experts to try and figure this out, and it's a pretty screwed up situation from our perspective, and I can see it from yours. I mean, someone just shows up with water in your front door, but
Yeah.
I mean, based on the state's standard that they came up with, yeah, you need drinking water now, but 2 days prior to that, everything was fine. So, personally, I don't see that it's something for people to really be concerned about. They recommend that you drink and cook with it, and we're providing that as a public health concern because we want people to, you know, if that's what the standard is, then we want people to be within the standard, and we're helping the state in that regard. But this isn't settled science by any stretch, and we're just trying to figure this all out ourselves, like what we're actually liable for, if anything, and where the sources of these can't, because like he said, there's different chemicals on one guy's site, and then 2 feet away, there's a whole nother chemical, or there's nothing. And we can't really figure out how it's happened.
Okay. Guess that answers my question. Alrighty, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Anybody else under the public comment? Okay. Well, I guess that water's been delivered to a number of residents. 17. I think they were delivered, was it 10 cases of water?
10 cases of 6-gallon jugs.
Okay, to be used for cooking and consumption. Okay. Did everybody get, we were sent some information, and I saw a note that Glenn could speak on it if we needed him to. The question, I guess it was, to your question, Chief, was on, actually, what does the Rockingham Planning Commission currently do for us for our dues?
That's great, thank you very much for providing that.
Do we have any questions on it?
I have none.
The only thing I'll point out is, he didn't mention in there is, they just took on the cost for us to do the co-op buying of electricity. They did the legal work behind it, they did, you know, that was a savings to the town.
Right, and he could have put that in there, I don't know why he didn't.
I was shocked.
The one thing that isn't in here that he did mention to me in the email when he sent this is that he didn't put in the anticipated cost savings to the town by participating in the electricity aggregation. And in his email, he said that Kingston will probably realize about a $6,000 savings over the 3-year period, so a couple of grand a year.
2,000 a year, yep.
Yep. But in addition, Kevin, there was that additional groundwork that they covered.
Yeah, but there's companies that go out and do that for you that you have to pay or get a commission of the,
right.
You know, so it's.
Maps, several little things that.
So the other thing that Tim mentioned, and I think he put it right at the end of the letter, is that even though he broke out where Kingston's where most towns' dues go, and he used Kingston as an example there to give you some sense of it. But, you know, like other organizations like this and other situations, it's the squeaky wheel gets the attention. And so if there are things that we want from the Planning Commission, we should be asking for them. And we do, but perhaps we should think of them more often and ask for other things if we feel we need them. So like if you guys were working on something and felt that, you know, a particular piece of data or a particular map of some kind would be helpful to you, you know, we could request that of the Planning Commission. Now, they could say, you know, that's way too complicated, that's beyond what, you know, what we can do for dues, but then again, they might be able to do something. Just to keep in mind.
Okay. Anybody got any questions for Gordon? No? Well, if you see him, thank him for responding to that, we appreciate it.
I definitely will.
One other thing on old business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Under old business, I just want to check with the board, because I got an email from someone that went a couple, 3 weeks ago to look at a past Board of Selectmen's meeting on YouTube, and it's not there. And I thought we already talked about it, that we're not going to, you know, put this week's up and delete last week's. That we're gonna leave it so it's all gonna be indexed so people can go and do that. I had a quick conversation with our video guy here, and he is not doing that. He said he could easily add them back because he has them filed, but I thought we were gonna index them on YouTube with, you know, whether it's however he does it, so it's easy to find Kingston, New Hampshire, BOS, you know, and a date or something. So is that what we are doing or not doing, or is that what the will of this board is?
The will of the board is. I mean, I knew he was saving them to do that.
Anna, could you come out and address that a little bit? Sorry? We got a question on, I guess, archiving selectmen's minutes and not meetings, and making them available on YouTube. What are we presently doing? Just
if I was wrong, my apologies. I thought the last thing I had heard was you were discussing just keeping them, but what I thought, the last instruction I thought I received was only keep one on YouTube at a time, and just as the new meeting came out, you wanted the old meeting taken off. If that's wrong, first off, my apologies for misunderstanding. Going forward, I can just leave them out. There's no space limit, and if the board wishes, I can absolutely go back. It might take some time because it's not a super fast process. I could put every meeting I have on any of those drives back up on YouTube and keep them there forever.
And there's no limitation on.
The only thing we did get rid of, we had boxes and boxes and boxes of old.
Yeah, I will clarify, anything before, I think, 2011, I can't do anything about, because those were on VHS.
We did dispose of those.
Yeah.
We looked into it, brought it to the board, and the board decided to dispose of those.
But,
that's what we did.
I mean, I have any meeting, since we got the new unit, I have set up on the new unit. Anything from the old unit, I have sitting on a drive right in the other room. I can pull it up, I can upload it. Again, it takes somewhere between like a half hour to an hour or so to upload each meeting, so it would take some time to get it done. But I could absolutely do it if that's what the board wishes.
Are we talking about the recent meetings since we've started broadcasting on YouTube?
Yeah.
So we can,
is that
we
what
can
your concern
download
is,
as
not
many as
going
we
back
can.
to 2000?
No, we don't need 2011, but I would think if you could every so often put another historical one back, go, you know, stop from last week's and keep.
Yeah, obviously, what I would do would be, I would start with the most recent, and just as time and funding and everything permits, just progressively go back. And I think there are a few on there. I haven't really looked through everything that was on the previous unit that we had to get rid of. I think I've seen some that are back from maybe like 2012, 2010.
It'd be reasonable to go back a year.
Yeah, a year, that's all I'm asking. I don't wanna go back to 2011, but I just say, you know, at least a year, and then leave them on there so people can look.
So what unit, you said you had some of them on there already, what unit is that on?
No, okay, I'm sorry, I misspoke. So, I have not deleted any meetings. Any meeting that I or before me, Doug, recorded,
Just
we
can't be
still
pulled
have
up at this point.
I still have them archived. I was taking them off YouTube. Again, my apologies if that was not what we wanted done. I misunderstood that. I can absolutely put them all back up. Just take some time, yeah, go back a year if you'd like.
I'd say last deliberative session, that was all.
Keep a year at a time. Dump one off.
So,
well, I don't know about dump the year up. Once it's there, leave it. Just keep adding.
So go back a year to re-add them, and then just from now on, do not delete anything on that. I am going to ask one question then, while it's something that hasn't come up pressingly, but since we're discussing it now. I don't think we're in danger of filling up the current storage anytime soon. It's a 4 terabyte storage. Each meeting seems to be taking, say 2 gigabytes, 3 gigabytes. So we're gonna have plenty of time. I'm not sure if going forward you guys might want to decide, you know what, we only want to keep a year worth of meetings on this unit, but we'll keep everything on YouTube going forward. I don't know what you guys want to do. It's just, eventually we might run out of storage, and I don't know if you want to have
If it's on YouTube, we don't need to keep it here then, I would say, or, you know, if it's on the cloud.
We do keep it backup, so in the event that something does happen.
Yeah.
Isn't that correct? Isn't that what we
And
do?
I have, yeah, so I just, again, for right now, well, let me also clarify. Right now I have 2 backups, so to speak. I have the Castus, which is the broadcast unit that everything saves to. Anything that I've recorded on the Castus is just there. Anything from the Electronics, which was the previous unit, is on a separate drive that I salvaged from the damaged unit. I do have a second 2 terabyte drive that's currently just sitting there because it's just potential storage space. I can have more backups if we'd like. It technically might be, I might ask for another $20 or so just to get a second drive reader just to expedite the whole thing. But storage is not a huge issue. The only reason I brought up the storage space on that is, again, I wanted to have that kind of, have people aware of that so maybe we could take care of it before it became a problem rather than one day I realized, oh no, we're completely out of room, now I'm gonna kind of have an emergency situation.
I think we're probably talking about 2 different things.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, while I had you here, I figured.
And the only other thing if I could just ask you, Adam, when you do put it to YouTube, that it's indexed the same, whether it's, you know, Kingston, New Hampshire, or Kingston, New Hampshire.
Yeah, so what
let's keep it one set.
What I usually do, it will be Kingston, Kingston, New Hampshire. I think it might be Kingston, NH. I would have to double check. I can change that. Then dash whatever the board means, so Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, whatever, and then the date.
Yeah.
I don't usually have a terribly in-depth description. It's again just meeting of this board on this date at the town hall. If you want, I can have a more robust description. No.
No, just so it's the format the same, so if someone goes to it, they'll see them all there, not that they have to put the comma or not put the comma type thing.
Yeah, no, the formatting, I tend not to change that around too much. The only ones that are different are, you know, the Otati and Goss meeting, that had a different format because it was a special situation. The meeting last Wednesday, that had a different title formatting, because again, but it still starts Kingston, New Hampshire.
Thank you, Adam.
Sure. Sorry again for the misunderstanding.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll start taking care of that possibly tomorrow.
Okay, anything else under old business? New business. Public right-of-way ordinance, invitation to participate in group representation.
This came to, actually Glenn left.
Yeah, but we've been puzzling over this and sending it out to this one and that one for explanations, and the latest is that Glenn Greenwood will be pursuing this for Brentwood, so he can go to an initial meeting. It's about representation through a lawyer's office, DTC. They're offering to do this group representation for, creating a comprehensive public rights of way ordinance. I showed them our ordinance for telecommunications towers, and she said it's not the same thing. You still would want this other thing, I think it goes.
Are they talking about the right of the poles and the taxation and all that?
Yeah, and the wireless things that are coming in and different.
Now it's going to 5G. So this law firm, reached out to us, and we already missed the deadline. It was in our packet before you left, actually.
Yeah.
And we, kind of bounced it back and forth. Then it came to us again. So Glenn was reaching out to Rockingham Planning Commission and Glenn Greenwood. Susan called NHMA. What it is they help you, and they just take a commission off of what the work they do. This is for like 5G networks or stuff like that that's going to be coming out.
The cost is unknown because it depends on how many towns participate. So initially we won't really know too much about that, but I believe if we have Glenn report back, then we can decide after that.
It's developing an ordinance for the town to adopt,
Yes.
right? Is that what the lawyer's doing?
Yeah.
Well, if Brentwood's doing that, we can just scrap this.
Well, they keep it updated.
It's gonna be
or whatever.
universal for all communities, right?
Pretty much.
So is that okay if he at least initially represents us as well as Brentwood?
So we authorizing Glenn to obligate us financially to participate in this? Is that what you're asking?
No, to come back with information.
Okay. All right. Next, tax rate, we took care of that. The purchasing policy?
I had a couple of questions on it. On the second page, we gonna, it talks about, they don't need POs anymore, but we're gonna see a manifest, I assume? I guess the question's more for Susan, not Susan, for Cindy. I assume she's gonna prepare a manifest for us to see every Board of Selectmen's meeting.
I think that was the idea, wasn't it?
But it doesn't mention it, so I didn't know, so that's why I just had that. And then, under competitive bidding, she wrote in here that contract shall be awarded to the lowest responsible bidder. I don't know if I want lowest.
Responsible bidder, probably.
Yeah,
Lowest out.
Yeah, I think, the most reasonable, whatever word, but I don't think I want lowest in there. So I had a question on that. And, I'm fine with the conflict of interest ethics, but, we listed pens, pencils, paperweights, cups, candy, calendar. Does that exclude hats and shirts? Or do we just set a dollar amount, nothing over a $50, non-denominational gift? I don't know, it was funny, we listed everything, but we didn't list hats or shirts. I'm sure Rich might have a rock hat. Yeah. I was just wondering if it'd be more prudent to put a dollar amount on there.
How about if we just put inexpensive advertising items?
There you go, I like that better.
Well, those were just examples, I guess, not limited to, such as.
Oh, did it say not limited to? I must have missed that.
Well, it doesn't say not limited to, but it says such as.
Yeah.
I think they were examples, it wasn't, and the shirts and hats would probably be covered under the et cetera. I would think. So, on the competitive bidding, you have concerns with it, I mean, in general, I mean, don't you think this policy is designed to encourage the board to accept the lowest responsible bidder?
I think responsible leaves it open. If there's a known history of issues with that person, they can't, you know, they may have a low number, but they're not considered responsible to complete the job, I guess.
I mean, someone lives in Kingston and their bid is, you know, I don't know, $1,000 more than someone that lives in Massachusetts.
But didn't we run into this kind of with the ambulance?
How so?
Well, we were told because we put it out for bid, we had to go with the low number, because it negates the entire bid.
No. Bid. We were looking to give consideration to another fire department.
But the attorney's gist of it was, it negates the point of the bidding process if we're not sticking to the numbers that we were.
Correct.
So I think, don't you think by excluding lowest would be doing the same thing?
Not excluding the lowest, it's just, you're not setting the precedent that we have to take the lowest.
Lowest responsible. I mean, otherwise it's just arbitrary.
It's always arbitrary, but that's why there's a 5-member board, and, you know, I mean, I'm not gonna go with someone that's, you know, 3 times the price of everyone else, you know.
I mean, a prime example would be the heating and air we just bid, that one bidder was $150 higher than the other one, but providing a lot more. So if we were bound to the lowest bidder.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think if it's apples to apples,
Right.
identical.
I mean, you clarified what was actually being included in that bid, and at the end of the day, it was still the lowest bid for what we were actually receiving.
That is true,
but I mean,
I just think reasonable bidder says.
Why do you have the word lowest? Why not just leave?
Because I think that it can get us into an issue where, what's the point of putting something out to bid if you got 2 people giving you the exact same service and you opt not to go with the lowest?
Well,
first of all, I don't think that's gonna happen very often, but.
Well, we're talking about putting a provision in here to allow it.
I look at, we just went out to bid for the masonry over at the historic building, the museum, and he just did a bid for the police department HVAC. And they came back and they were, even though it was bid specific, they didn't come back with the specifics of the bid, even though we had a open meeting before the bidding to show them what we wanted.
Okay, and that would fall under responsible bid. If they're not giving you the bid that they've been requested to give. But I think it can leave us open. I mean, you develop a policy saying that basically, even if somebody is qualified and they give the lowest bid, doesn't mean they're gonna get it.
Which in turn leads to people being like, well, I'm not bidding on that.
I guess, all right, so I would look at it as let's just say, for instance, exactly the example, you have someone that's in town that bids on something.
Yeah.
And they're $1,000 more than, and we're talking a $25,000 bid, than someone that lives in Andover, Mass.
And they're both qualified
They're
equally?
both qualified,
It's the same
yep.
thing.
They give you pounds to pounds.
Then, in my opinion, you should be going to the one that protects the taxpayer. Not just because the guy happens to live in town. I would think if he lives in town, he'd give his town the best deal anyways.
Mobilization costs would be low.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that could definitely put you in a bad situation.
I know,
doing that.
It's a violation of contracting law, essentially. I mean, I get where you're going, And I think most of our departments make an effort to shop locally, utilize people under this $25,000 threshold. We have a network of people that we use locally, but I think when it comes to bidded services for over a certain amount of money, over $25,000, we owe it to the people of Kingston to bring them the lowest bid.
Lowest qualified.
Lowest responsible bid, you know, someone who, in an apples to apples comparison, and I think in all those cases, either the department head has gone through all those bids, Rich goes through all the road bids, and he gives us the recommendation, based on this is who I recommend. He felt, you know, and I think the last time we went with someone who, they were very close to each other, he felt they would be more suited for, and he gave his reasoning for that. And I think that quantifies it, or that qualifies as a responsible bid. But I think I fully believe in giving the town a discount wherever you can, but at that realm, you know, you need to give it to the person who's bidding it properly and bidding at the lowest price.
Same time, if the town gets a reputation for not taking a low bid, people will stop bidding, because I bid to a lot of general contractors, not so rural vendors. You know, they have their favorites, and that's who they'll go with most time, even if you are low bid. And people stop bidding to those contractors. Some contractors cannot get bids because they know they're wasting time.
Exactly.
And we don't want to end up in that situation. Not that we bid a tremendous amount of work every year, but
it's only getting harder and harder to find qualified people.
It is.
Under purchasing procedure, under,
Get a page.
page 2.
Page 2.
Bottom of the page, about 25001. We, utilize the state bid list a lot. So those are already put out.
That's like for cruisers and stuff.
Well, there was a provision in there for where you wouldn't go to bid, cases not requiring bidding, and items purchased under state or federal bid list, on page 3.
That takes care of that, right?
I think it will, yeah.
Any other concerns?
I think the manifest is a good idea, and I don't care if we see it weekly or monthly, but to see it breakdown of where it stands budget-wise, and the only...
Well, I think you're gonna have to sign off on the manifest anyway.
Yeah,
Didn't Cindy indicate that you have to approve everything?
The only thing that I worry about on this is special events, that we need to have some way to keep them.
What are you thinking of, Rich?
I don't wanna give free will to a group that, I don't know how I wanna say this.
Carefully.
You know, like the 325th, good example. Something that doesn't happen very often. Just say they have a $100,000 budget that we need to be able to keep more of an eye on, something like that, but it's not I mean, most of our other departments run the same cost every year, and it's pretty much in line, where the 325th is brand new all the time.
Well, why don't we just specify then the difference between department head and volunteer?
Yeah.
Just because their budget is over 20,000, all right, they're not a department head, they're volunteer.
That would be fine.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that would do it. Just something that we.
So maybe for the first one, we put department head or voluntary committees.
That would do it.
I know exactly what you're saying. The only other question I had was, under reasons not to bid, it said an item previously awarded within 12 months. I didn't understand that.
You don't have to send it out to bid every time.
No,
so
but when
if you're using, we get a plow installed on one of the trucks.
Yeah.
And we already got 3 bids, 3 sealed bids, and then 8 months later, one of the plows breaks, we're like, we know this guy's gonna do it cheapest, and he did a good job on this one.
Okay, all right, I got
If
you.
he's willing to do it for the same amount.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got you,
but
okay.
it stops having to get 3 people to do it and go through the whole sealed bid
I got you,
process.
all right. I make a motion to approve the, purchasing policies and procedure as amended.
Second.
So what was the amendments?
It was just, department heads or volunteers, voluntary boards, would be on the first expense approval.
Or do we wanna say? I mean, there's, all those events have committee heads, Kingston Day, chairman.
But they don't have department head. There's a difference between a paid salary position as a chief or a,
I think that's caught up here, though.
is it?
It doesn't do what we'd like it to, but it's because it's identifying department head or committee chair.
Oh, yeah, right there, okay, all purchase, or committee chair, right. Yes, but,
Basically, we don't want to give, the $1,000 level to committee chairs.
correct. They stay in the $0 to $200 range.
Okay, so department head and committee members under $20,000 budget, and then over that would just be department head.
Correct.
So insert, committee chairs under the $0 to $200 range.
Yep. And then the only other one was the, I guess we could just leave it as your, I mean, inexpensive item, advertising items, but that'll be fine, even if we leave it the way it is. We'll consider it the et cetera.
And you want to say something about a manifest in there somewhere, wherever it's, I'm not looking at it right now.
Maybe the selectmen shall review the manifest every 2 weeks?
Yeah, that makes sense, because then it applies during the summer.
Yeah. So I guess just add a bullet point under spending approval guidelines as follows, and then it can say, selectmen will approve a manifest every 2 weeks. Prepared manifest.
Okay, and manifest every 2 weeks, you want to say every 2 weeks or minimum of every 2 weeks or something?
Say minimum of every 2 weeks.
Is there something you want to do every 2
Yeah.
weeks?
You wanna vote on it now, or you wanna just have the revisions made?
Yeah, I can go to Cindy, we'll bring it back next week if you want to do that way and look at it again.
What's the board wanna do?
Voting now.
What's that?
I'm comfortable voting
Yeah.
now.
Okay. We'll bring it back.
I'm fine with it. Adopting it now with those revisions? Yeah. Okay. So did we have a motion and a second?
Yep.
Yeah.
All those in favor of adopting the purchasing policies and procedure with those revisions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we got a, sleep institute, I guess they've written a couple of, maybe it's the same letter, but one of them had photographs attached to it.
Can I see the picture? Because I don't know what land the town owns.
Yeah, that's what I was
over
wondering
there.
too, but he does have the full picture. Has anyone checked with, like, Brian or the highway department to get their opinion on it?
It started off as one pine tree, then part of it fell apart into the driveway, that's where it started. And then the letter.
Standing 20 feet away when it happened, and it was nothing that could be construed as town land.
She wants us to, she's split the cost with
So
us.
I guess it's the same letter. Here's some,
I just didn't copy
happy to.
the photos and a
Map of where the
approved
tree
site
is,
plan.
allegedly, right on the line.
No, no, that, we don't own that. Town doesn't own that.
Well, typically, the town owns the sides of the road. Towns on the side of the right of way. It differs with every single road.
I mean, there's 3 trees behind this one before you get to the road.
Well, I spoke with her based upon,
Did you look at, was the bounds, did you see the bounds?
I did, it's been surveyed, it shows the bounds, it goes through the middle of the tree, in the middle. I understand the pine tree, but then she wanted to take other trees. I spoke to her about buffer.
There was a question, would that be considered buffer under the planning board, or?
It could be. You'd
I'd have to look at the site plan.
So I told her to pull a site plan and look to see, you know, what was required on the site plan. I mean, she couldn't just go in there and cut all kinds of trees if there's a buffer.
Well, didn't Glenn go look at it and he said it, I thought there was 4 trees or 6 trees she wanted to take down, and Glenn went and looked at it and said he didn't seem to think there would be an issue. I saw an email from him about it, but.
For her to take them down?
Yeah.
Well, now it's a question of, is it towns and?
Is there, why is there?
No. I understand why she wants to take it. I mean, it's the pine trees that are heading towards her building.
Well, I mean, I don't like how it says split the cost with her.
Say it again?
Well, it says split the cost, so she's gonna pay somebody X number of dollars and then hand us a bill for the balance, where we would have our people do the work instead.
I don't see why we would have our people do any work on it. I mean,
well, that's my point, is that
I think our tree removal duties are, is it obstructing the roadway? We'll get it out of there, but that actually went into her property.
might be a good idea to have Brian look at it.
What's that?
That tree might be a good idea to have Brian look at it.
I'd just be curious his opinion if he says, yeah, no. You know, I mean. And then if he feels it is our tree or not our tree, could they take it down, or, you know, should it be taken down?
Well, I approached Rich and Brian on another tree in town and said, you know, this losing branches that are dropping on the road, and tree's dead and everything, and they're talking about dropping it, but leaving it for the neighbor to clean up, or the resident. That they're gonna drop it because it's a road hazard. You know, but they're not gonna get involved in any cleanup or anything else, so he's gonna leave it for the resident. So, I don't know if this.
So we bought, that's why we bought that new chipper. Okay, how do you wanna respond to her?
I think highway should go look at it.
I wouldn't mind looking at it.
Yeah, I'd like to know what Brian's opinion is.
Okay, we just let her know that we'll send the highway department down there to take a look at it. Do not retain somebody with the expectations of us splitting the cost of removal. Does that sound reasonable? Committee liaison reports.
My report is that Thursday night there is a Conservation Commission meeting that I cannot attend. Whether anybody wants to fill in or leave it unattended.
Is there anything contentious up for discussion that requires select board representation?
Not that I know of, there's the catching up on the pollination program going around, somebody's coming in to speak to that. Other than that, it's standard stuff. They actually keep pretty good minutes, you know, so I can let Abby know I won't be there and make sure she doesn't need anybody there.
Yeah, if it requires someone to be there, I can fill in for you, but if it's not a.
Okay, I'll let her know.
While we're talking to conservation, and the budget, every year it's been, for the, milfoil for Powwow Pond has been a warrant article, and this year, we already talked about, we're gonna be putting it into, as a line item. It'll be the same way to get spent out, and, you know, it doesn't limit it just for them, or whatever, but.
It actually, because I was at that meeting when they talked about that, and I brought that to board, several months ago, but it actually gives us a little more ability to control it.
And when I was on the budget committee way back in the day, there was always the policy, if the voters supported it 3 years in a row, that it's, you know, proof that the voters support it, and it's been supported well over 3 years, so we're not taking the choice away from the voters. They'll still be applying for grants and everything else. For liaison reports, I did get a phone call from Chief Pellerin. Engine 2 went out for pump repair. He had an estimated price of $1,000 to $1,200, I think he mentioned it to us. When it came back, he didn't get a bill till just this week. And what they originally said it was 3 leaks, it ended up being 5 leaks. And the bill came to like $2,200. And Graham was beside himself that, you know, why would you call me and let me know before you do it or anything else? But it's a frontline piece, it's a newer engine, it's not under warranty, it's the second newest engine, I should say. But the price came back higher than it was supposed to be. And that was the difference. It went from 3 leaks to 5 leaks that they fixed. So he wanted.
Can you say why there was a difference in price?
It was the deck gun. The deck gun was leaking. I guess I didn't notice it. The seal on it. 5 seals they had to replace.
That was something else you had to do in addition to.
Yeah. Yeah, when it went, they thought they had 3 leaks, and they ended up having 5 leaks. But he was just upset that the guy never called him and said, hey, we found these 2 leaks. The guy just fixed it and never gave him a choice. Didn't get a bill till a week later. But it is Lakes Region, who was historically cheaper than if you call any of the other pump testing companies, but he was just.
Might want to remind them next time, whatever the bid is that you give, or the cost, price, you know, we would expect to pay that unless you notify us prior to any work being done.
Yeah.
As far as the inspectors meeting, we've been sending out an updated spreadsheet of all the permits that have been pulled for the town. On Fridays, send that out to all the inspectors, town engineer. I can certainly include any select board members who wish to be part of that. If there's something you see on the weekends, can't get a hold of someone, you could pull up the spreadsheet and see if they've actually pulled a permit for what they're doing. So if you want to do that, just let Tori know. She can put you on that distribution list. Chief, this one, I guess the guys at Fire never got to do an inspection on John's truck when they reopened there. John's truck where they did the metal thing.
Oh, for the building when it burned?
Yeah, the building that burnt, I didn't know, I know you talked to those guys. I guess it just needs a final inspection on that permit.
Okay.
And then
So who didn't inspect it, the fire department?
the fire department hadn't inspected, and I don't think Robert had given them a final inspection.
So why don't they just go down and inspect it? I mean, don't they typically just get a hold of the business owner and say, hey, you need a final inspection when you wanna do it?
No, usually the business owner contacts them to get the final occupancy. I just figured it'd be quicker if he just said that to them and they can close the loop.
Where does the car dealership, the line, sit? After I spoke to him, is he not complied with
As far as I'm aware, they have not gotten their business occupancy permit.
So they're gonna continue to operate with not, I mean, we should probably, I'll get on and look at it again, but we should probably send a letter to the board.
Well, Glenn Greenwood was supposed to go down there and do an inspection, so I need to touch base with him.
So it's
See
saying
what the
this has
results of
gone
that
on
was.
since this summer.
Yeah.
So we should probably, the board, I would say next meeting, we should generate a letter.
How about if we have Phil follow up with Glenn, and then Glenn, before we send some letter, we'll get a response from Glenn.
Yeah, because he'll have a comprehensive list of everything that's out of compliance, and then we can add the occupancy permit onto that.
Where are we at with the, permitting fees?
Everybody's been really busy. I've had light attendance at the inspectors meeting. We did switch to a bi-weekly setup just because I wanted to make it valuable for everyone and not just do it every week. It's probably something that's gonna be more in the January, February timeframe where I can sit those guys down and kind of, right now, I've already put the request out to everybody to look, because all these guys work in other towns, so they know what the permit fees are in the area. So those guys are getting those lists together on that. And we're planning on just doing like maybe a slightly longer inspectors meeting. I'll get breakfast brought in or something, and we can just kind of review, get a list together of what proposed ones are, and I can bring it to the board. So, and it'll be done with evidence of what other towns are charging in the area and justification behind why it should be increased, kept where it is, or maybe even decreased, because one of the things that we talked about was like business occupancy inspections. You know, there are people with these tiny little retail things that don't have any major electrical things, and it's pretty expensive to have them come out and look at like a 100 amp panel.
Yeah. So,
that's one of the things that's been discussed as well. Is
Are
lowering
you gonna
some.
work on a penalty fee as well?
That, so what we've been talking about is what penalties are in place in other towns and what they've found to be effective, what isn't. So we're just kind of trying to revamp the whole thing, but the first start of it will be the fee structure.
When you bring that breakfast, I found fresh eggs and fresh bacon, or?
You can't afford that.
Anything else under liaison?
You're aware what this is, right? They got hacked. Yeah.
Say it again?
They got hacked.
Who?
The library, the old library.
The old library.
Museum?
Museum. I got one of the emails about if you don't pay us $10,000, we're gonna destroy all your files and blah, 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 blah.
I've been working with them.
You should watch where they, go for sites.
Never trust that Nigerian prince. Never comes through.
I got money from the guy.
Okay, I'd like to open it up to public comment for the second time. Anybody interested?
Good evening, Mary's here. I wanted to get here earlier, but I had an appointment. I was curious to find out about the tax rate. I can read about that online, I guess, or contact the DRA, or wait for you to post it. But it was interesting, while you were talking, I was looking on my old phone at the YouTube channel, and there is nothing there. There's like a couple of special meetings, Toddy and Goss, and the one you had with the water folks last week, and one with state representatives, and then there's just the most current meeting for you guys. But it's not just you guys, all the other departments that do post meetings to YouTube only have a current week. So I don't know if Adam wants to talk to them about what they want to do, or if you have jurisdiction over what gets stored. But for the sake of transparency and accountability, I'm shocked that this hasn't been done all along. I'm shocked. All the other towns around here either have a link to directly from where they house it on their town website, or it's noted so that you can go into an archive and actually on demand look at past meetings. So thank you for agreeing to do it. And I'm curious if it's something that your tech guy here can do while he's sitting here filming the current meeting. If it takes about a half an hour per meeting, he can't, no?
You missed it, he shook his head
I know.
1,000 times no.
All right. Because and I think it's a great idea.
The broadcast.
Gotcha, that would make sense. But I think it's important for the citizens of this town, and anybody who wants to access the information, to be able to find it, again, in the sake of transparency and accountability. The meeting minutes, by design, are superficial for everybody, for every committee. You don't want to go into great detail. And it's important for people, if they need to go back to refer to content, to be able to find it. You know, the silly stuff that goes on, as you know, in social media, and people are so lazy and say, does anyone know what yesterday's, hot lunch was or whatever? And they're too lazy to go look it up. But if they had a reliable resource, they could probably figure it out on their own, with a little intuition. And even if there were a link from the town website saying, here's our, whether it's gonna be YouTube or wherever you're gonna house them, just to give people the opportunity to self-help. It would probably be in everybody's best interest for them to be able to find this stuff out on their own, than let them guess and perpetuate bad information. That's all. Thank you.
We have been working on this for like a year, actually,
Well,
to try and get it built into this. The one you're talking about, we found the database on the other town's website. That's actually very expensive, we found out, for them to archive that. So then we started doing the YouTube thing, and we're kind of just getting our feet under us more than anything.
Well, no, I am aware of that. I mean, I've kind of been following, I read the minutes and stuff. But I think if you can't and won't, and it makes sense not to house right on the website, a link to the YouTube channel, just get them where they need to go, whether it's for the planning board or the, heritage committee, whoever it is that, I don't even know. But each committee or board seems to have a single, most current.
We had a policy, we started a policy on that.
Yeah, and I think that was the other thing, is we probably need to take another look at that with this.
So we're allowing people to come in and post to that, right?
Yeah, we did that, but I think what she's saying is just, under Board of Selectmen, there should be a link that anyone can click on. They'll bring you right to the YouTube page of tonight's meeting.
Well,
And you can pick from.
I think it needs to go further than that. It should be a policy, because we're in charge of what happens there. So any people that are gonna post something out there, it needs to be the same thing. So it should be a policy, so there's no lack of understanding. You know that if you have a televised meeting, that is gonna be on there forever. And this is how it needs to be done, so it's clear. So it's not gonna be something different for planning board or ZBA. It's gonna be the same for every meeting that goes out. It should be a policy.
Consistency is not a bad thing.
Right, consistency. That way, people don't make mistakes and it's posted for whatever.
Or people are not inferring or guessing or, again, spreading bad content.
So I think we need to work on a policy for that.
That's in nobody's best interest, but thank you.
Thank you. Did you, we got that purchase order, right?
Yeah, it's right there.
Do the minutes.
It's all signed by all of us, so.
Thank you. Did you want to make a motion on the minutes there, Don?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as printed for both public and non-public for October 28th.
Second. Okay, any discussion?
I just asked her to add in a quick blip about my statement last week that I stopped you from your motion by mistake.
I did put it in.
So that was the only correction I had.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as written for October 28th, 2019, with the correction, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll abstain since I wasn't at the meeting. We have a, request for an appointment of Christine Hume to the Historical Museum Committee. Do we wanna ask her to come in?
Yeah, I asked, yeah, the chairman of the committee, I'm just trying to remember, who's out there.
Yeah.
She said the person is kind of shy, and I said, well, you're gonna wanna talk to her, so I just haven't heard anything yet, but she'll probably be coming in at some point.
Okay.
Guys are scary.
We'll hold off on that then. We received a notification of a shoreline permit application. The town must own property, at 28 Great Pond Road, tax map U4 Lot 9, it's from, Dennis Quintel. Just says, letter is to inform you that a permit application will be filed with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services for shoreline impact permit associated with the above referenced project.
What is it?
What's that?
Project.
It doesn't say. I'm required to notify you about the application which proposes work abutting your property.
It's within.
Once it is filed, the permit application, including plans that show the proposed project, will be available for viewing at the town hall. So I don't think we have the actual proposal, right? Okay. We have this, I guess you guys saw it before on the veterans exemption.
I have a hard time reading what you, I would ask for clarification, because I read that as the plates are free, not the taxes due on the vehicle. I don't know, I mean, do we do that for every one?
A vanity plate for a veteran, apparently it's supposed to be free according to that RSA, and when they put it in, it was coded wrong, so he was charged, and so this is a refund of that amount.
So the plate is free?
That's a,
Strongly question that.
The plate, I think, is free.
No, the plate isn't free. A regular vet plate is not free.
The first one is, according to this RSA.
This is a special,
on a vanity plate.
well, it's basically, it's not just for veterans, it's disabled veterans, Purple Heart recipients, prisoner of war.
So it's the entire cost of the plate?
Well, she's looking, apparently the state gets their money, supposedly, which was $98. Our fees totaled $285, and she's got a request here refunding that.
It's not a fee. That's our taxes for registering a vehicle.
So, how do you want to proceed with it? I'll read that.
What's the statute say?
Check it out.
Statute.
There's a copy of it in there. Okay, we have a notice of class action suit. It's addressed to all U.S. counties, cities, local governments.
Is that opioid?
Opioid negotiation class info.
Federal. Federal.
I guess what this here is whether or not you want to exclude your town from the lawsuit. Complete this form only if your county or city does not want to remain a class member and does not want to share in a potential negotiated class settlement.
Can I go back to this? The cost is your town, city, and state registration fees plus $40. Following plates have a yearly non-prorated fee to include decal plates, veteran, $15.
That's $261.86.
The New Hampshire.gov website.
So did you ask Tammy if that's her interpretation, or if she actually talked to the desk? The deal.
I think it's just the way they usually do it, and this one time, Holly put the code in wrong, so the guy got charged inadvertently, and that's what they're trying to refund. I don't think this is an unusual thing, it just was coded wrong, so it shouldn't have been charged. That's the way I understood what she told me. But this is something that they do ordinarily for a veteran. But I'm not sure what the different costs are that are included.
Do we want to take no action on this?
Say no action on that. And then I would.
Exclusion.
And then I'll follow up with Tammy, or we could all follow up with Tammy. I'm just curious in that because I find that interesting.
My thoughts would be to verify with the state we're doing it right.
Yeah.
This one?
That we haven't been doing it wrong all along.
No, it's right here. So it's the initial set of plates, it's issued without charge.
But is it the vanity part of the plate or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Does it say on the whole thing?
An additional set of plates will be issued to the person who qualifies for the special plate.
That's the second car.
Upon payment of state and municipal fees. Okay, so it's the initial set that is issued for free. An additional set of plates, you're required to pay the state and municipal permit fees.
Okay, so I got two issues with that. Then why isn't the state why is the state getting their money? If that's true.
No, the initial setup is free, is issued without charge.
Okay, but if you look at the registration.
State got $92.
The state got their money. I believe.
Next page.
Well, I think she put it in wrong, and that's why it brought it up.
She's only trying to refund the town's part.
Well, she can't refund the state part, it's already gone.
So what, we pay that?
No, it gets refunded through the state. So, my understanding is, once they've done it, the state process, the state part of the process, she can't refund, it has to go to the state. They can only refund the municipal side.
So you mean to tell me that they qualify for no registration fees on one vehicle?
One set of plates. That's what the statute.
It also says it's transferable.
Is Tammy still down there or no?
No, she's gone to Porter Road.
Second set you have to pay for. First set is free. And I don't think they can refund the state part, because we've dealt with it in the past where they've had to go to the state for that money.
It also says it's transferable, and my neighbor, when her husband died, had to come in and pay the fees. So why wouldn't it transfer in her case?
What's this?
It's sent by the planning board, lot line adjustment, 12 Rockland Road. Maybe Phil knows what it is. What's that?
12 Rock Rimmon, did you say?
12 Rock Rimmon. It's comment sheets for us. another one here for a proposed, it looks like a proposed shed. Bill, do you know anything about these?
Lots are 2 Marshall Road?
No, they haven't come up yet, that's why you guys are getting them. Because you're getting department review. Plat of land.
Showing existing conditions and proposed shed at 1 Library Lane. Right there, proposed shed. So you just wanna put a 12 by 14 shed on the back of the property? I don't think we'd have any concern about that, would we?
I don't see one.
That even be coming to us.
What's that?
Why would that even come to us?
Because we're the library, we're in a butter.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's well within the setbacks. Anybody got any concerns on that? On the shed on Library Lane?
No.
So I'm just gonna check off no comment, okay? So do we know what this one is?
Looks like they're gliding off.
Library Lane.
That's one you just had.
Proposed change of use. See plan number.
This is Rock Rimmon. That was like the plan.
I also said the same thing, with the same cover sheet. Should. You don't have a cover sheet for that,
No.
do you? So, I don't know if we've got a cover sheet for this.
Should be.
Well,
It was the same one.
it might be the same one, unless there was 2 of them here for some reason. Ooh. Yeah, see it.
Right on the plan.
Who's what?
This lot line's been eliminated. It's almost like they're taking this, like they're pulling in another lot.
Proposed lot line. Adding to it.
Sure, that's right there. Put the wrong code in. We reimburse the town portion, the state reimburses it.
Bill, this is the house on Rock Rimmon and Colford. Looks like a lot line adjustment. Do you know anything about it?
I won't see that until the next plan.
Okay. We don't have a comment sheet on it. Oh, this is the revitalization thing.
Oh, that's you looking for.
I'll sign, this is, so, there's 3 categories of special plates that there are no charge for, so if she's saying the state's gonna refund his portion, then I couldn't have charged him anything.
Yeah, that's right, I have it right here. I asked her, to scoop of the vet's plate, to get the first plate free, you want a refund from the town, and who reimburses the state's portion.
So the plate, when they say the plate is free, there's absolutely 0 taxes to the vehicle.
That's what I'm understanding. Only put the wrong code in.
It's only a Pearl Harbor survivor, a Purple Heart recipient, or a
POW?
A POW, or there's a certain level of disability, pretty much full disability to get
A disabled vet should not be charged for plate. So the second part of that question was, who refunds the, who reimburses the state's portion? She said the state.
That's a good deal.
Well, if you're a prisoner of war, I guess.
No, but there's a lot of Purple Heart
Yeah.
recipients.
Says that it's transferable to your
Why don't you
spouse.
read the 3 special categories on where you'll be getting for disabled other than Purple Heart? Is you gotta be legally blind.
Yeah, I saw those, but Purple Heart is if you just have a Purple Heart, right?
I don't think many people just have a Purple Heart.
I know a couple that.
It's a pretty big to-do to get a Purple Heart. In fact, I
Not
want
really, actually, you have to, but it's the only award, it's not an award, it's
Alright,
a
okay.
medal. It isn't even subject to review process, it's if you are injured and spend more than 1 day in a hospital, you are awarded a Purple Heart.
Right. Well, that's what I said.
In a combat situation.
There's a lot of them.
Not many, actually.
How far off are we talking about that contract from the Dave L one?
I didn't see that.
You put it in your, he mentioned in an email that it's slightly over budget for the year because of the new testing. I just wanted to let you know, he was gonna, you could put the overage in with the testing or get you an amended contract.
So I wanna talk about that contract.
Okay. On an existing contract, it's from,
When does that one expire?
I think it was, I mean, it was for the year, well, it was for a set amount.
A lot of this contract or anything.
Headquarters. Did he include that in this?
Not sure what.
Or did he just tell you that verbally? Oh, you said it was an email?
Did I print anything for you?
Well, you printed the email to Dave. Here's what you said.
This is all about the water issues. I don't know if the one about his contract is in here. All this other stuff kind of took over. I think that's in there. We'll look through that.
Yeah, that's all I see on it. He was concerned that the additional testing put him above the,
Yeah, and he just wanted to let you know that, so that if you wanted him to, I think what he was saying, if you wanted him to amend the contract for you to sign, or he can put that together with the charges with the additional testing. How that works if it's going over his contract. I don't want to put words in his mouth either.
How about if we just have it come back next week? We have the contract and,
Yeah, it's gonna be 2
Well,
weeks.
or would you want?
I would wanna, probably we need to talk about that as far as legal advice.
okay,
Only because, I think we need to look at the totality of the circumstances here. This thing grows bigger. Look at the legal expenses, look at the bigger picture, rather than just keep adding a contract on top of this thing. I think we need to look at the whole big picture.
Is he gonna stop working, or is he gonna continue working?
You know what I mean?
He's continuing, he's still, he's putting his plan forward that I put in there, the big sheet, adjusted that, he sent that into DES. That's for the next round of testing, so it's ongoing.
He signed a contract with us for last year, and for this part, what was it, $5,000? Is that what it was?
Oh, $62,000.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
$62,000, I believe, for all the testing that the state wanted and
But
all that.
originally, we issued a smaller contract prior to the larger contract, right?
Yeah, that one was to develop the plan that he was gonna execute.
Well, the 5,000, we're talking about the,
right?
same one head?
We putting the gas in the radiator.
Geez, don't fall asleep on me.
Is it right down there?
I'd make a motion to go non-public if we have nothing else.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
Contract. Okay, that's fine.
issue that, I think
I don't see anything else on the agenda.
we need to talk about, hiring of an employee.
I would say
Yeah,
under
other
A, C,
than
and D.
non-public.
What?
I would make a motion to go in non-public under A, C, and D.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we should just keep adding contracts on top of contracts. I think we need to look at it. Are we satisfied with what we're getting? What's the cost? Should we put it back out again?
That's fine. Okay, we have anything else other than the couple legal issues and a personnel issue? Okay, that'll conclude the televised portion of our meeting. We'll be adjourning to non-public. Thank you for watching. Have a good